I came to my son's house for dinner. Comfort, wine, peace after arguments. It seemed that everything was returning to normal, but a call from my security company shattered this illusion. Someone had triggered the motion sensors at your property, Mr. Sullivan. When I got up to leave, my son Tyler grabbed my arm too sharply, too confidently. My name is Marcus Sullivan, but everyone calls me Mac. I'm 52 years old and I spent 20 years in the Navy before starting my construction company here in Charlotte. That military training taught me to read situations, and tonight something felt very wrong. My hands gripped the steering wheel tight enough to leave marks. The text message glowed on my phone, resting against the dashboard. Dad, come at 7:30 p.m. sharp, not earlier. 25 minutes had passed since Tyler sent it. 25 minutes of me sitting here 3 blocks from his house in Myers Park, engine idling, trying to decode what those 7 words actually meant. The last time I'd seen my son was 6 weeks ago on September 1st. He'd come to my office at Sullivan Construction with spreadsheets and projections, asking for $320,000. Not asking, demanding. When I said no, he called me selfish and old-fashioned. Amanda stood behind him in the doorway, arms crossed, nodding along like she was directing some kind of performance. The door slam echoed in my memory louder than it had in reality. Now this. An invitation with a specific time. No flexibility. No. Whenever you can make it. I turned off the engine and checked my watch. 7:28 p.m. Close enough. I grabbed the bottle of bourbon from the passenger seat. A Blanton's I'd spent 30 minutes selecting at the liquor store, debating whether reconciliation deserved $60 or $90. I'd chosen the $90 bottle. Peace offerings shouldn't feel cheap. The walk to Tyler's front door took longer than it should have. Charlotte's Myers Park sprawled around me, all manicured lawns and luxury cars. My son had done well for himself, at least on the surface. The house was a modern colonial with clean lines and expensive landscaping. I'd helped with the down payment 4 years ago, when he was still pretending to run a legitimate cryptocurrency consulting business. That felt like a different lifetime. I raised my hand to knock, but the door opened before my knuckles touched wood. Mac! Amanda's smile stretched too wide, showing too many teeth. She pulled me into a hug that lasted 4 seconds too long. My first alarm bell, quiet but persistent. We're so happy you could make it. Wouldn't miss it. I handed her the bourbon, studying her face. She'd always been hard to read, but tonight something felt rehearsed about her enthusiasm. Tyler appeared behind her, hand extended. Dad, good to see you. His grip was firm enough to make a point. He led me through the foyer, past family photos I'd seen a dozen times, toward the dining room. Hope you're hungry. Amanda's been cooking all day. The dining room stopped me mid-step. Candles flickered on a table set with cloth napkins folded into perfect triangles. My favorite dishes: prime rib, roasted vegetables, fresh rolls, covered every available surface. The whole scene screamed professional staging, like a model home designed to sell a lifestyle rather than a home. This is quite a spread. I pulled out a chair, the wood scraping against hardwood floor. Special occasion. Amanda moved to the bourbon bottle, already uncorking it with practiced efficiency. Family doesn't need an occasion. We just wanted to see you. It's been too long. 6 weeks. It had been exactly 6 weeks. But I nodded and accepted the glass she poured, watching her hands move with choreographed precision. Tyler sat across from me, his energy too bright, too eager. They were performing something, and I was the only one without a script. So, Dad, Tyler passed me the rolls, his casualness feeling anything but. How's the construction business treating you? Still holding on to that mountain property? That mountain property. The 80 acres I'd bought 5 years ago in the Blue Ridge Mountains as a retirement investment. Why would he mention that specifically? Business is steady. I broke a roll in half, steam rising from the soft interior. Why do you ask? Just curious, making conversation. The response came too quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. I looked at Amanda, who was adjusting a candle that didn't need adjusting. She met my eyes and smiled, that stretched smile again. We're so glad you came tonight. She refilled my bourbon glass without asking if I wanted more. Family shouldn't fight over money, right? The word hung between us like smoke. Money. The thing that had broken us 6 weeks ago, now being dismissed as trivial. I set down my fork, measuring my next words carefully. I've always believed family comes first, but that doesn't mean abandoning principles. Tyler's jaw tightened just a fraction, just for a second. But I'd spent 20 years reading faces across military briefings, and 15 years reading them across negotiation tables. I knew the look of someone holding cards they didn't want to show. Silence settled over the table, broken only by the scrape of silverware and the distant hum of the air conditioning. Amanda cleared her throat. "More bourbon, Mac?" She was already pouring before I could answer. Her hands trembled slightly, sending tiny ripples across the amber liquid. Another false note in this carefully composed symphony. I ate because refusing would have been more suspicious than playing along. The prime rib was excellent. Amanda had always been a skilled cook, but I tasted nothing. My mind was cataloging every glance they exchanged when they thought I wasn't watching. Every question that felt like an interrogation dressed as small talk. Every second that Tyler checked his phone with increasing frequency. Something was happening here, something beyond a reconciliation dinner. I wanted to believe in the possibility of genuine forgiveness. I wanted to think my son had invited me here to rebuild what we'd broken 6 weeks ago. But I'd spent too many years reading people, understanding motivations, recognizing deception in the smallest gestures. This felt orchestrated, staged, timed. "Tell me about the cryptocurrency market," I said, testing the waters. "Your consulting business must be booming with all the recent volatility." Tyler's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Just for a microsecond, but I caught it. "Actually, Dad, the market's been challenging lately. Lots of regulatory uncertainty." "Challenging how?" "Well, clients are nervous about new SEC rulings. Some projects have had to pause operations." Amanda jumped in too quickly. "But Tyler's adapting. He's diversifying into blockchain consulting now. Much more stable revenue streams." I nodded thoughtfully, filing away their nervous energy. "In the Navy, we called this defensive positioning, when someone starts explaining things you didn't ask about." Tyler was scared, and Amanda was covering for him. "That's smart thinking," I said. "Diversification is always wise. Speaking of which, how are you two handling your mortgage payments? This house must run, what, $4,500 a month?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Tyler's face flushed slightly. "We're managing fine, Dad. Thanks for asking. Good to hear. I remember when I helped with your down payment, you mentioned the monthly carrying costs were going to be tight, but that was 4 years ago. I'm sure your income's grown significantly since then." Another exchange of glances. This time, Amanda's smile slipped completely before she caught herself. "Tyler's business has been very successful. We're actually looking at expanding." "Expanding?" I kept my voice curious, interested. "What kind of expansion?" "Office space in the tech corridor. Professional image matters in cryptocurrency consulting. Clients want to see that you're established, serious about the business." Tyler nodded eagerly, gaining confidence. "There's this perfect space on South Boulevard, Class A office building, fiber optic infrastructure, parking for clients. The lease terms are excellent." "How excellent?" "Well, it's a bit of an investment up front, but the long-term ROI projections are solid." I took a sip of bourbon, studying their faces. "What kind of investment are we talking about?" Tyler hesitated. Amanda's hand moved to his wrist under the table. I caught the gesture in my peripheral vision. "Around $18,500 a month for a 3-year lease. But Mac, the client base we could attract with that kind of professional presence, would easily justify the expense. $18,500 a month. That was $222,000 a year, just in rent." For a cryptocurrency consulting business that Tyler had just admitted was struggling with challenging market conditions. "That's significant overhead," I said carefully. "Have you signed the lease yet?" "Not yet," Tyler said quickly. "We're still in negotiations." Another lie. I could see it in the way his eyes shifted left for just a moment. In the Navy, interrogation training taught us that people's eyes often dart toward their non-dominant brain hemisphere when constructing false information. Tyler was right-handed, and that leftward glance told me everything I needed to know. My phone vibrated in my pocket. The sensation was subtle, but Tyler's eyes snapped toward the movement like a radar tracking an incoming missile. His face drained of color, Amanda's bourbon glass froze halfway to her lips. I reached for my phone, moving with deliberate slowness, and their panic became tangible. The dining room suddenly felt smaller, the candlelight oppressive. My hand closed around the phone in my pocket, and in that instant I knew with absolute certainty that whatever was happening here, it wasn't about reconciliation at all. The phone showed a text from SecureWatch, my security company. Motion sensors activated at Sullivan Residence, 8:43 p.m. Multiple zones triggered. Dispatch requested? My blood turned to ice water. Someone was in my house. Right now. While I sat here playing Happy Family with Tyler and Amanda, someone was inside my home. I read the message twice, then a third time, making absolutely certain I understood what I was seeing. Someone was in my house right now. In my study, where I kept business documents, financial records, the wall safe behind the bookshelf that held $45,000 in cash, and my mother's jewelry collection. In the bedroom where I kept my military medals and the smaller safe with my expensive watches. The chair scraped against the floor as I stood. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the sudden silence. I need to leave. Now. Tyler lunged across the table before I'd taken 2 steps. His hand clamped around my wrist with shocking force, fingers digging into the tendon where my watch strap sat. Stop, Dad. Wait. Just give it 10 minutes. Please, let me explain. I stared down at his hand on my wrist, at the white pressure points where his grip was cutting off circulation, at my son physically restraining me while someone robbed my house. Explain what exactly? My voice came out flat, drained of inflection. Why you needed me here at precisely 7:30 p.m.? Why Amanda keeps asking about my mountain property? Why you're physically restraining me while someone breaks into my house? His face told me everything, the confirmation I didn't want, but now couldn't deny. The careful mask he'd worn all evening shattered completely, replaced by something desperate and cornered. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't bad timing. This was coordination. Amanda moved to block the dining room exit. The gracious hostess had vanished entirely, leaving behind cold calculation and expensive clothing. Her eyes had gone hard, businesslike. Mac, if you just sit down and listen, move. Now. I used the voice I reserved for construction sites where safety violations could kill people, the voice that had commanded respect on Navy ships for 20 years, 2 decades of authority compressed into 2 syllables. Amanda's eyes widened, but she didn't step aside. Tyler's grip tightened on my wrist, his fingers finding pressure points he'd learned from some self-defense class. It hurt, but I'd endured worse during Navy training exercises. You don't understand the pressure we're under, Dad. The debts, the opportunities we're missing. You have so much, and we just needed... You needed to rob your own father. I typed with my free hand, thumb moving across the screen with deliberate precision. Dispatch police immediately. Break in progress. I'm en route. SecureWatch's response came instantly. Units dispatched. ETA 12 minutes. Stay online for updates. Dad, please. Tyler's voice cracked into something close to begging. If you'd just given us the money when we asked 6 weeks ago, none of this would be necessary. You're sitting on millions in property and investments while we're drowning in debt. What kind of father watches his son struggle when he could help? The manipulation was textbook. Appeal to guilt. Make the victim responsible for the criminal's choices. I'd seen it in business negotiations, in military tribunals, in family court proceedings when I'd helped friends through divorces. It never worked on people who understood the technique. What kind of son conspires to rob his father while pretending to make peace? I wrenched my arm free with more force than necessary. Tyler had been expecting resistance, but not the controlled violence I'd learned in the Navy. His fingers left red marks on my wrist that would bruise by morning, but the physical act of breaking his grip felt symbolic of something larger rupturing between us. The contractor we hired is a professional, Tyler called after me as I pushed past Amanda. She tried to grab my other arm, but I spun away from her reach. He knows what he's doing. Nothing would be damaged. We'd pay you back with the cryptocurrency profits. You'd never even know if your security company hadn't. I stopped at the front door, hand on the knob, and turned back one final time. I know exactly what's happening, and I know you orchestrated every detail of this. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with admission, with the weight of betrayal fully acknowledged. No denials, just Tyler's pale face and Amanda's calculated stare, both of them understanding that their plan had collapsed completely. If you report this, Amanda started, her voice hard-edged now, all pretense abandoned. We'll tell everyone you're having mental health issues. An old man, living alone, making irrational decisions. We'll fight this. We'll file for guardianship, claim you're incompetent to manage your affairs. Please do. I kept my voice conversational, almost amused. I'd love to see you explain to a judge how my mental incompetence led to your coordinated burglary, how my confusion somehow caused you to hire professional thieves and time this dinner to provide yourselves with alibis. Tyler took a step forward, desperation replacing calculation. Dad, think about what you're doing. This destroys our family forever. Over what? Property? Money? Things that don't matter compared to blood? No, I said, opening the door to the cool October air. You destroyed our family when you chose theft over honesty, when you hugged me goodbye after memorizing my safe combinations during your bathroom breaks, when Amanda smiled at me across this table while your hired thief was stealing my mother's jewelry. We needed, Tyler started. I don't care what you needed. The words came out harder than I'd intended, but I didn't soften them. You made choices. Calculated, premeditated choices. Now live with the consequences. I walked out, leaving the door open behind me. Let the neighbors see them standing there in their expensive clothes, in their staged dining room, exposed for what they really were. The cool night air hit my face like a slap, clearing away the artificial warmth of their performance. My truck waited at the curb where I'd parked it 90 minutes ago. A different man had locked that door. A different man had walked up that sidewalk carrying bourbon and hope for reconciliation. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed with an update from Secure Watch. Officers on scene. Suspect detained attempting to exit through rear door. Property secured. Requesting your presence for identification and statement. I pulled away from the curb, watching Tyler's house shrink in the rearview mirror. The porch light illuminated two figures standing in the doorway. Tyler and Amanda, watching their carefully planned operation collapse in real time. Neither waved. My hands gripped the steering wheel with controlled tension. The pieces had fallen into place with terrible precision. The specific timing, the probing questions about my assets, the performance of reconciliation masking something darker. They'd orchestrated this entire evening, used family loyalty as camouflage for theft, believed I'd be too trusting or too desperate for peace to see through their theater. They'd underestimated 20 years of military training and 15 years of reading people across business negotiations. The drive to my house took 28 minutes through Charlotte's evening traffic. I pushed the speed limit but stayed legal. Getting pulled over would only delay my arrival and complicate the police investigation. My mind raced through what I might find when I got there, what might be missing, what damage might have been done to the home I'd built with my own construction crew 8 years ago. Every red light felt like an eternity. At each stop, I checked my phone for updates from Secure Watch. The messages came in steady intervals. 8:47 p.m. Suspect in custody. Male, approximately 25 to 30 years old. 8:52 p.m. Preliminary sweep shows forced entry through rear door. No signs of violence. 8:58 p.m. Detective Torres en route. Please do not enter property until cleared by officers. Detective Torres. I knew that name from the Charlotte business community. Angela Torres had spoken at a Chamber of Commerce meeting about commercial fraud cases. Sharp woman, reputation for thoroughness. If she was handling this, it meant the police were taking it seriously. Red and blue lights painted my house in accusatory colors when I finally turned onto my street. 2 police cruisers, a detective's unmarked sedan, and a Secure Watch van sat in my driveway, their strobes turning everything stark and surreal. I pulled in behind them, killing the engine, but staying seated for a moment. My house stood violated but intact. The structure looked solid, no broken windows, no obvious damage to the exterior, but something indefinable had changed. The building that had been my sanctuary for 8 years now felt contaminated by unwelcome presence. A uniformed officer approached my truck as I stepped out. Young guy, maybe late 20s, but professional bearing. Mr. Sullivan, Officer Martinez, Charlotte PD. Detective Torres is inside waiting for you. We've secured the scene and detained the suspect. What can you tell me about what happened? Male suspect, approximately 28 years old, was inside your residence when our units arrived. He attempted to exit through your rear door but was apprehended in your backyard. He's being processed now. 28 years old. That eliminated the possibility of some random drug addict looking for quick cash. This was someone young enough to be athletic, coordinated, professional. Someone Tyler's age. Detective Torres emerged from my front door as we approached. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, the bearing of someone who'd worked enough cases to recognize patterns. She extended her hand with firm confidence. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm Detective Angela Torres, Financial Crimes Division. I understand you may have information about how this break-in was coordinated." "I do. My son Tyler Sullivan orchestrated this. He kept me at dinner while his hired thief broke in." The timing was coordinated down to the minute. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "That's a serious allegation. Walk me through what happened tonight." As we entered my house, I explained the evening's events, the specific 7:30 p.m. timing, Tyler's nervous questions about my assets, Amanda's rehearsed responses, the way they'd both panicked when my phone buzzed with the security alert. "And you believe your son had prior access to your security systems? He's been here dozens of times over the past 4 years. Family dinners, holidays, casual visits. I trusted him with my alarm codes. He knew my routines, my habits, where I kept valuable items. Each room felt like visiting a familiar place rendered foreign by violation. The living room looked untouched, furniture in place, entertainment center undisturbed, kitchen clean, nothing obviously missing. But in the master bedroom, the story changed dramatically. My dresser drawers hung open at odd angles, contents scattered but not destroyed. Someone had searched methodically, looking for specific items rather than grabbing everything valuable. The jewelry box my mother had given me sat empty on the nightstand, its velvet interior exposed like an open wound. Military dress medals from the bedroom display case. I kept my voice level, professional. Navy Achievement Medal, Good Conduct ribbons, Combat Action ribbon. Sentimental value primarily, but some collector value, approximately $15,000, Detective Torres wrote without looking up. What else from the bedroom? 3 watches from the smaller safe. Rolex GMT Master, Omega Seamaster, Vintage Patek Philippe. Total value approximately $45,000. The safe. Was it forced open? No. Combination lock, but it was opened correctly. Someone knew the combination. We moved to my study, where the motion sensors had first been triggered. My desk had been rifled through with systematic efficiency. Business contracts scattered but not destroyed. Property deeds missing from their usual folder. Financial statements pulled from files but left behind. Whoever did this was looking for specific documents, not general financial information. "The wall safe behind the bookshelf," I said, leading Torres to the far wall. The heavy oak bookshelf had been moved aside, revealing the safe behind it. The door hung open. Cash reserves, $45,000. Various legal papers, including the deed to my mountain property, 80 acres purchased 5 years ago, current value approximately $1.8 million. That deed is what they really wanted. Torres studied the safe's lock mechanism. No signs of forced entry here either. This was opened with the correct combination. Someone who had access to my home, who I trusted enough to learn my security procedures. Your son. My son. She closed her notepad and looked at me directly. "Mr. Sullivan, coordinated theft like this, with inside information and specific timing, this isn't simple burglary. We're looking at conspiracy charges, possibly federal charges if we can prove interstate coordination. The suspect we caught, he's not talking yet, but his ID shows an address in South Carolina. That makes this a federal matter. Federal charges. That meant FBI involvement, serious prison time if convicted, permanent felony records that would destroy any chance Tyler had of rebuilding his life legitimately. Detective Torres, I need you to understand something. This wasn't a desperate son making a bad decision. This was planned, calculated, and executed by someone who spent weeks studying my routines and vulnerabilities. The evidence will show premeditation. What kind of evidence? Office lease agreements, business loans, communications with potential buyers for my property. Tyler's been planning this for months, not days. The police stayed until nearly 2 a.m. Photographs of every disturbed room, fingerprint powder on surfaces the thief had touched, evidence bags for items that might contain DNA. Detective Torres worked with methodical precision, documenting everything that could be used in court proceedings. The suspect, Jeremy Walsh, 28, from Charleston, South Carolina, had been processed and booked on breaking and entering charges. He'd invoked his right to remain silent, but his very presence told a story. Professional criminals don't travel 200 miles for random break-ins. Someone had hired him, paid him, given him specific instructions about what to take and where to find it. Walsh has 2 prior convictions for burglary in South Carolina, Torres told me as the last officer departed. Both involved high-end residential properties. He's not some amateur looking for drug money. Someone hired a professional. Can you prove Tyler hired him? Not yet. But Walsh's phone records will show who contacted him, when and how payment was arranged. Financial crimes leaves digital trails. We'll find the connections. After the police left, I sat alone in my study, laptop glowing in the darkness. The house felt too large around me, every space reminding me of what had been taken and, more painfully, who had orchestrated the taking. But I didn't rage or break down. Instead, I did what 20 years in the Navy had taught me. I gathered intelligence and planned my response. First, I pulled up Tyler's social media profiles. His Instagram showed photos from expensive restaurants, a recent vacation to Miami, Amanda wearing jewelry I didn't recognize. For someone claiming financial hardship, they'd been living well above their means. The vacation photos were time-stamped from 3 weeks ago, right after I'd refused to give him money. Next, I checked public records for business filings. Tyler's cryptocurrency consulting business was registered as an LLC, but the corporate address listed was a UPS mailbox store. No physical office, no employees, no substantive business presence. Yet he'd claimed to need $18,500 monthly for office space. I opened my security system's digital logs. Every entry, every exit, every code used was recorded with timestamps. Tyler's access pattern showed a troubling progression. June 15th, normal family dinner, armed system when leaving. July 4th, holiday barbecue, disabled system, re-armed when leaving. August 12th, casual visit, disabled system, forgot to rearm. Called me later apologizing for the oversight. September 20th, coffee visit, disabled system, left it disabled for 3 hours. October 1st, quick stop to pick up tools I'd borrowed, disabled system, left it disabled overnight. The pattern was clear. Tyler had been gradually testing my security response, learning how long the system could stay disabled before I noticed, conditioning me to trust him with access codes. What I'd seen as family comfort, he'd seen as surveillance opportunities. My phone buzzed with a text message. Tyler's number, sent at 2:47 a.m. Dad, please call me. We need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding. I screenshot the message and saved it to a folder I labeled evidence. Then I blocked his number. At 6:30 a.m., I called Colonel Samuel Bradley. We'd served together on the USS Nimitz 15 years ago, and he'd built a successful estate planning practice in Charlotte after retiring from the JAG Corps. His specialty was protecting military families from financial predators, including family members who might exploit trust and access. Sam, it's Mac Sullivan. I need legal advice urgently. My son orchestrated a theft of my property last night. Jesus, Mac. Are you okay? Physically, yes. Financially, I've lost about $105,000 in cash and valuables, plus the deed to my mountain property. But Sam, this goes deeper. Tyler's been planning this for months. I need to protect what's left and build a case for prosecution. Come in at 9 a.m. Bring everything. Police reports, security logs, financial records, anything that shows premeditation. The drive to Sam's office gave me time to organize my thoughts. This wasn't just about recovering stolen property. Tyler had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. He'd used family trust as a weapon, exploited my love for him as a vulnerability, and involved professional criminals in a coordinated attack on everything I'd built. The military had taught me that you don't just defend against attacks, you eliminate the threat's ability to attack again. Sam's office occupied the 12th floor of a glass tower near the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Premium space for premium legal work. His secretary, a competent woman in her 50s, showed me directly into his private office. Mac. Sam stood and gripped my hand firmly. 20 years of friendship in that handshake, the recognition of one veteran helping another in crisis. Tell me everything. I spread documents across his conference table. Police reports, security logs, Tyler's social media posts, business registration records, the timeline of his security system access. Everything organized with military precision. 6 weeks ago, Tyler asked me for $320,000. I refused. Last night, he orchestrated a coordinated theft while keeping me away from my house with a fake reconciliation dinner. The evidence shows months of planning. Sam studied the security logs carefully. This access pattern shows systematic preparation. He was conditioning you to trust him with your codes while learning your vulnerabilities. Exactly. And now I need to protect my remaining assets and ensure this never happens again. 3 immediate priorities, Sam said, pulling a legal pad toward him. First, emergency asset protection. Your current will probably names Tyler as beneficiary. That needs to change immediately. Second, we create defensive structures to prevent him from accessing anything else. Third, we document everything for criminal prosecution. How long? New will with witnesses, 48 hours. Comprehensive asset protection trust, 1 week. But Mac, once we start this process, there's no going back. You'll be cutting Tyler out of your life permanently. I looked out the window at Charlotte's skyline, the city I'd called home for 15 years, where I'd built my business and reputation. He cut himself out when he chose theft over honesty. I'm just making it official. The next week became a blur of systematic legal action. Sam Bradley moved with military efficiency, understanding that speed was essential when family members turned predatory. We met twice daily, morning strategy sessions and afternoon document reviews, building layers of protection around everything Tyler might target. The new will was executed on October 18th with 3 witnesses from Sam's law firm. Tyler Sullivan was removed entirely as beneficiary. My assets would transfer to a charitable foundation focused on helping young veterans start legitimate businesses. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Tyler had chosen crime over character, so my money would support people who embodied the values he'd rejected. The revocable living trust is more complex, Sam explained during our 3rd meeting. We're creating a structure that removes your assets from personal ownership while maintaining your control during your lifetime. If Tyler tries to sue for inheritance or claim mental incompetence, he'll be fighting a legal entity, not attacking your personal estate. How bulletproof is it? Titanium grade. I've used this structure to protect military families from divorcing spouses, business partners, even adult children with gambling problems. Once it's established, Tyler can't touch it through any legal mechanism. The asset appraisal took 2 full days. Professional evaluators photographed and cataloged everything of value: real estate, vehicles, business equipment, personal property. The mountain land appraised at $1.95 million, significantly higher than my original purchase price. Tyler had been planning to steal something worth nearly $2 million. But paperwork was only half the battle. I needed to understand the full scope of Tyler's plan, and that required professional investigation. Nathan "Tank" Morrison had been Navy intelligence before going private sector. We'd served together briefly in Norfolk, and he'd built a reputation for unraveling complex financial fraud with surgical precision. Tank specialized in following money trails that subjects thought they'd hidden. We met at a coffee shop in Charlotte's financial district, neutral territory where our conversation would blend into the background noise of business meetings. Tyler asked you to co-sign business loans 6 months ago, Tank said, reviewing the folder I'd prepared. That was his first attempt at accessing your assets legally. When you refused, he moved to illegal methods. How deep in debt is he really? Tank had already begun preliminary research using Tyler's social security number and business registration information. What he'd found painted a picture of desperate financial decline. Your son owes $640,000 in total debt. Credit cards, cryptocurrency losses, private loans from questionable sources. The monthly carrying costs alone are crushing him. $640,000? The number hit me like a physical blow. He told me he needed $320,000. He lied. $320,000 wouldn't even cover half his obligations. He was planning to steal your property deed, forge your signature on sale documents, and disappear the full $1.95 million into offshore accounts. Tank showed me printouts of Tyler's financial activity. The pattern revealed someone living far beyond his means while his income collapsed. Expensive restaurants, luxury purchases, cash advances to cover basic living expenses. The office lease he mentioned at dinner. That's real. $18,500 per month for 36 months. Total commitment of $666,000. He signed it on September 15th, knowing he had no legitimate way to pay for it. Why would he sign a lease he couldn't afford? Because he was counting on your money to fund it. The theft wasn't desperation, Mac. It was the foundation of a business plan that required stolen capital to succeed. Tank's investigation revealed the true sophistication of Tyler's scheme. He'd researched property transfer procedures, identified potential buyers for the mountain land, even established shell companies to launder the proceeds. This wasn't a desperate son making bad choices. This was organized financial crime. I can trace all of this, document the premeditation, provide evidence that will guarantee federal prosecution. But I need to warn you. What I find might be worse than what you expect. Find everything. I want the complete truth. While Tank investigated Tyler's financial crimes, I began my own campaign of professional isolation. Charlotte's business community was tightly networked, and word traveled fast when someone crossed lines of professional ethics. I called Richard Manning, who owned the building where Tyler had leased office space. We'd worked together on commercial construction projects, and he trusted my judgment on character assessment. Richard, I need to share some information about one of your tenants, Tyler Sullivan, Suite 920. He's currently under federal investigation for coordinated theft and fraud. The court records are public. Your son? Yes. And you have a business to protect. Lease agreements typically include clauses about criminal conduct affecting the property's reputation. Richard's tone shifted to business calculation. I'll review the lease terms immediately. The second call went to Karen Voss at First National Bank. Their compliance department needed to know when loan holders faced federal charges. Ms. Voss, I'm reporting publicly available information about a business loan holder currently under federal investigation. Tyler Sullivan, federal case number available through Charlotte Federal Court. Banks had automated protocols for high-risk borrowers under criminal investigation. Tyler's loan terms included acceleration clauses that would trigger immediate full payment requirements if certain conditions were met. Federal charges qualified. The third call was to Andrew Caldwell, a commercial attorney who'd referred cryptocurrency clients to Tyler over the past year. Professional networks protected themselves by cutting ties with compromised members. Andrew, I wanted to give you a heads up about Tyler Sullivan before it affects your client relationships. He's under federal investigation for theft and fraud. Court documents are public record. That's your son, isn't it? It is, and I'm giving you information to protect your clients and your reputation. What you do with it is your choice. Each conversation was brief, factual, professional. I wasn't asking anyone to take action, just providing information that prudent business people needed to make informed decisions. Tyler's business world would collapse, not through vindictive attacks, but through the natural consequences of professional people protecting their interests when they learned about criminal liability. By October 25th, I had comprehensive legal protection, ongoing federal investigation, and systematic isolation of Tyler's remaining business relationships. The fortress was built. Now I waited for Tyler to realize his situation was hopeless. Tank Morrison's final report arrived on November 3rd, delivered via encrypted email with enough evidence to bury Tyler in federal court. The investigation had uncovered a web of premeditation that went back 8 months, far longer than I'd imagined. Your son began planning this theft in February, Tank explained during our meeting at his downtown office. That's when he first researched property transfer procedures for Henderson County land sales. He spent months studying the legal requirements, identifying potential buyers, establishing the shell companies he'd need to launder the proceeds. The evidence was methodical and damning. Tank had traced Tyler's internet searches, email communications, and financial transactions, browser history showing research into property fraud techniques, email exchanges with Jeremy Walsh dating back to March, bank records proving Tyler had paid Walsh $15,000 up front with another $35,000 promised after successful completion. The most sophisticated part was his buyer identification, Tank continued, sliding documents across his desk. Tyler found 3 different property development companies willing to purchase mountain land for immediate cash, no questions asked. These aren't legitimate businesses. They're fronts for money laundering operations. Tyler hadn't just planned to steal my property deed. He'd arranged the entire criminal enterprise needed to convert stolen documents into untraceable cash. The buyers he'd identified specialized in purchasing questionably obtained properties, then flipping them through complex ownership transfers that obscured their origins. Federal prosecutors love cases like this, Tank said. Organized fraud across state lines, with clear evidence of premeditation and criminal conspiracy. Your son is looking at 10 to 15 years federal prison. While Tank documented Tyler's crimes, the consequences of professional isolation were already destroying what remained of Tyler's legitimate business. Richard Manning had invoked the criminal conduct clause in the office lease, giving Tyler 10 days to vacate. First National Bank had accelerated his business loan, demanding immediate payment of the full $290,000 balance. Andrew Caldwell had sent letters to all clients he'd referred to Tyler, explaining that professional ethics required disclosure of criminal investigations affecting business relationships. Tyler's cryptocurrency consulting business lost its entire client base in 72 hours. On November 8th, my phone rang at 11:30 p.m. Unknown number, but I answered. Dad. Tyler's voice was rough, exhausted, desperate. Please, we need to talk, just you and me. I said nothing. Let the silence stretch. Let him feel the weight of his situation. Everything's falling apart. The bank, the lease, my clients, they're all abandoning me because of what you told them. I didn't tell them anything that wasn't public record. Court documents, federal investigations, these things have consequences. You destroyed my business on purpose. You called my landlord, my bank, my professional contacts. You systematically ruined everything I built. The accusation hung in the air between us. Tyler wasn't wrong. I had made those calls. But his framing ignored the essential truth that his criminal actions had created the situation. I shared factual information with people who needed to make informed business decisions. Your choices created the consequences. I just ensured those consequences were comprehensive. Jesus, Dad. You're my family. How can you be so cold? Family doesn't hire professional thieves to rob family. You crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Tyler's breathing grew ragged. What do you want from me? What would it take for you to stop this? For the first time in weeks, Tyler was asking the right question. I'd been waiting for this moment, when his situation became desperate enough that he'd consider real accountability rather than continued manipulation. I want a full confession, written, witnessed, admitting to every aspect of your criminal plan. I want you to return everything you can and accept responsibility for what you can't return. I want you to waive any claim to inheritance from my estate permanently. Do that, and I'll recommend reduced federal charges. You want me to humiliate myself publicly? I want you to tell the truth about what you did and accept responsibility for the consequences. The silence stretched for 30 seconds. What if I don't? Then you face the full weight of federal prosecution without any mitigation from me. Tank Morrison's evidence shows 8 months of premeditation, interstate criminal conspiracy, and coordination with known money laundering operations. The prosecutors already have everything they need. You're giving me an ultimatum. I'm offering you the choice you should have made 8 months ago, honesty over crime. Tyler hung up without another word. 2 days later, Amanda called from a number I didn't recognize. Her tone was calculating, businesslike, stripped of the false warmth she'd shown at their dinner performance. Mac, we need to discuss this situation rationally. Tyler made mistakes, but destroying his entire future won't benefit anyone. Tyler didn't make mistakes. He committed federal crimes. He's your son, your only child. What kind of father refuses to help when his child is in trouble? The manipulation was textbook, appealing to guilt, reframing criminal accountability as family abandonment. But I'd heard these tactics before in business negotiations and military interrogations. The kind of father who understands that helping someone avoid consequences for serious crimes isn't help, it's enabling. Tyler needs to face what he's done. We'll fight this. Competency hearings, elder abuse claims, undue influence on your will changes. We have options. Please do. I'd love to see you explain to a federal judge how elder abuse caused Tyler to hire professional thieves and plan property fraud for 8 months. Amanda's careful composure cracked slightly. You're going to regret this, Mac. When Tyler goes to prison and you're alone with your money and your pride, you'll understand what you've lost. I've already lost a son. What I'm protecting now is my integrity and my assets from people who proved they can't be trusted with either. The call ended with the sharp click of disconnection. Amanda had played her final card. Emotional manipulation backed by legal threats. When that failed, they'd have no options left except accepting responsibility or facing maximum consequences. I preferred they choose responsibility, but I was prepared for either outcome. On December 15th, Tyler made his final desperate move. He filed a petition for guardianship in Mecklenburg County Court, claiming I was mentally incompetent to manage my own affairs. The legal documents painted me as a confused elderly man making irrational financial decisions, vulnerable to exploitation, suffering from age-related cognitive decline. The allegations were predictable but professionally crafted. Tyler had hired David Kellerman, a probate attorney who specialized in family wealth disputes. Kellerman's petition claimed my recent will changes and asset transfers showed impaired judgment. They argued that my business dealings had become erratic, that I'd isolated myself from family support, that my decision-making showed clear signs of mental deterioration. Sam Bradley called me at 6:30 a.m. after reviewing the filing. "Mac, this is actually good news. Tyler just made the worst tactical decision possible. How is a competency challenge good news? Because it opens the door for us to present all of Tank's evidence in open court. Tyler's forcing a hearing where we can demonstrate exactly why you changed your will. Comprehensive documentation of his criminal conspiracy. The judge will see that your asset protection wasn't irrational. It was necessary." Sam arranged for me to undergo independent psychiatric evaluation with Dr. Patricia Wesmore, a forensic psychiatrist with unimpeachable credentials. The evaluation took place over 2 sessions in Dr. Wesmore's downtown office. "Mr. Sullivan, tell me why you believe your son filed this petition, because I removed him from my will after he coordinated the theft of my property. He's trying to regain control through the courts since his criminal approach failed." Dr. Wesmore made notes without looking up. "That's a coherent, logical assessment. How would you describe your current mental state?" "Focused, determined, clear about my priorities and the consequences I'm implementing." The cognitive tests covered memory, reasoning, judgment, financial understanding. I answered each question with the same professional focus I'd use for complex construction project planning. This wasn't personal. It was documentation. Her report arrived a week later. Sam read the relevant sections over the phone. "Mr. Sullivan demonstrates no cognitive impairment. Scores above average for his age group on all assessments. Exhibits excellent judgment and reasoning capabilities. His recent estate planning decisions show appropriate response to documented threats to his assets. The competency challenge has no medical basis." The hearing was scheduled for January 12th. I arrived 30 minutes early wearing my best business suit, the same outfit I'd wear to close $1 million construction contract. This was performance as much as legal proceeding. Tyler sat across the aisle with Kellerman, looking haggard and desperate. 3 months of mounting consequences had taken their toll. His expensive clothes hung loose on a frame that had lost weight. Amanda wasn't there. Smart move, since her presence would have highlighted the coordination between them. Judge Patricia Hamilton called the hearing to order. Mid-50s, efficient demeanor, the look of someone who'd seen every variation of family drama play out in her courtroom. Kellerman presented first, arguing that my drastic estate changes indicated impaired judgment. He painted a picture of an isolated elderly man making vindictive decisions against family members who only wanted to help. Sam responded with surgical precision. "Your Honor, Mr. Sullivan's estate changes represent appropriate response to documented criminal behavior by the petitioner. Mr. Sullivan, please tell the court about October 15th. I stood, took the witness stand, and spoke clearly, factually, without emotion. "My son disabled my home security system during previous visits, then coordinated a theft while keeping me away from my house with a staged reconciliation dinner. The timing was calculated to provide alibis while professional thieves stole property documents worth nearly $2 million. Judge Hamilton looked directly at Tyler. "Is there an active criminal investigation?" "Yes, Your Honor. Federal charges are pending. The evidence shows 8 months of premeditation and interstate criminal conspiracy." Kellerman tried to redirect. "These are unproven allegations. My client maintains his innocence." Sam placed Dr. Westmore's report before the judge, along with Tank Morrison's complete financial investigation. "Mr. Sullivan has been independently evaluated by a forensic psychiatrist. No cognitive impairment found. His judgment regarding family members who pose criminal threats to his assets is not only rational, it's prudent." The judge reviewed the psychiatric report and financial evidence in silence. When she looked up, her expression had hardened. Petition dismissed. "Mr. Sullivan demonstrates clear competence and sound judgment. This hearing is concluded." 15 minutes. The entire proceeding took 15 minutes. Tyler's last legal gambit had failed completely, and now he faced federal prosecution without any remaining leverage. As we left the courthouse, Sam's satisfaction was evident. Tyler just handed federal prosecutors additional evidence of his character. Frivolous lawsuits against elderly victims don't play well with juries. The federal trial was scheduled for March. Jeremy Walsh had agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges, providing detailed testimony about Tyler's recruitment and payment. The evidence was overwhelming: digital communications, financial transfers, documented planning spanning 8 months. Tyler finally accepted a plea agreement on February 28th. Guilty to federal conspiracy charges, interstate transportation of stolen property, and fraud. The deal avoided a public trial but carried serious consequences: 4 years federal prison, supervised release for 3 years, and restitution of $185,000. Judge Margaret Harrison wasn't sympathetic during sentencing. "Mr. Sullivan, you orchestrated a sophisticated crime against your own father. You violated his home, his security, his trust. You used your family relationship to gain access for criminal purposes. The court finds this betrayal particularly egregious." I sat in the federal courthouse gallery, 3rd row back, watching Tyler accept his sentence. The man standing before the judge bore little resemblance to the confident cryptocurrency consultant who'd demanded money from me 5 months earlier. Federal prosecution had stripped away his arrogance, leaving behind someone who finally understood the permanent consequences of criminal choices. Amanda filed for divorce the day after Tyler's sentencing. She'd been smart enough to distance herself before the conviction, protecting herself from his legal and financial liabilities. The house went into foreclosure. Tyler would serve his sentence in minimum security federal prison, but his reputation and business relationships were destroyed permanently. With Tyler's sentencing complete and Amanda's divorce finalized, I turned my attention to something constructive. The Sullivan Veterans Foundation became my focus, a way to channel the pain of family betrayal into something that would help people who embodied the values Tyler had rejected. The foundation's mission was straightforward: provide startup capital and mentorship to military veterans launching legitimate businesses. No handouts, no charity cases, just support for people with solid business plans, demonstrable character, and the integrity to build something honest. Sam Bradley handled the legal structure, creating a charitable foundation that would outlast me and continue helping veterans for decades. The initial funding came from assets I'd protected during Tyler's criminal campaign, money that would have been stolen and laundered if his plan had succeeded. "You're transferring $1.2 million in assets," Sam noted during our final foundation meeting. "This represents about 60% of your total estate. You're ensuring Tyler can never benefit from your death, even if he somehow challenges the will. That's exactly what I want. My money will help people who serve with honor instead of someone who chose crime over character." The first scholarship recipients were selected in April. 3 veterans, ages 26 to 31, with business plans that demonstrated both commercial viability and personal integrity. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez wanted to start a cybersecurity consulting firm. Petty Officer James Parker planned a sustainable construction business, specializing in energy-efficient housing. Corporal Lisa Washington had developed a logistics coordination service for small businesses. Each recipient went through thorough background checks, financial reviews, and character assessments. They had to demonstrate military service with honor, business acumen, and personal integrity. Everything Tyler had lacked. The award ceremony took place at Sam's office on a bright Thursday morning in late April. I shook hands with each recipient, explained the foundation's purpose without mentioning Tyler's name. They didn't need to know the origin story. They just needed the opportunity. "What inspired you to establish this foundation?" Maria Rodriguez asked after receiving her award. "I learned that integrity matters more than family ties," I said. "Business built on dishonesty collapses. Business built on character endures. I want to support people who understand that distinction." She nodded, understanding without needing details. These were people who'd served their country with honor, who understood sacrifice and discipline, who would build something lasting rather than taking shortcuts to quick money. Life continued with renewed purpose. Sullivan Construction thrived as I threw myself back into work with energized focus. The federal conviction of Tyler had actually enhanced my reputation in Charlotte's business community. People respected someone who held criminals accountable even when they were family members. In June, I closed the largest commercial deal of my career, a mixed-use development project worth $12 million. The client, Patricia Wallace, had specifically requested Sullivan Construction because of our reputation for integrity and professional ethics. "Your handling of that family situation showed real character," she told me during the contract signing. "People talk about how you protected your business and assets without compromising your principles. That's the kind of person we want building our project. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tyler's crimes had been intended to destroy my financial security, but the principled way I'd handled his betrayal had actually strengthened my professional standing. Justice had unexpected rewards beyond simple punishment. Tyler tried to contact me once more in August, a letter forwarded through the federal prison system. I held the envelope for several minutes, considering whether to read his words. Finally, I decided against it. Whatever Tyler wanted to say, apology, justification, plea for reconciliation, I didn't need to hear it. I tore the letter in half without opening it, then in half again, until it was confetti-sized pieces that meant nothing. The time for communication had passed permanently. Tyler had made his choices during 8 months of criminal planning. I'd made mine during 8 months of legal response. The Foundation's first annual report showed remarkable success. Maria Rodriguez's cybersecurity firm had landed 3 major clients. James Parker's construction business was building its first sustainable housing project. Lisa Washington's logistics service was expanding to serve 15 small businesses across the Carolinas. Each recipient sent quarterly updates showing steady progress, careful financial management, and growing customer bases. They were building legitimate enterprises through hard work and honest business practices. Everything Tyler could have done if he'd chosen character over crime. On December 15th, exactly 1 year after Tyler had filed his frivolous competency petition, I received the final legal document closing his criminal case. All appeals exhausted, all restitution payments scheduled, all supervised release conditions established. Tyler would remain in federal prison until March 2027, then face 3 years of monitored freedom with strict conditions. I filed the document in a folder labeled Closed Cases and moved on to reviewing applications for the Foundation's second year of scholarships. 12 qualified candidates this time, all military veterans with legitimate business plans and proven integrity. The contrast was stark and intentional. While Tyler served time for criminal conspiracy, other veterans were building honest businesses with Foundation support. While his reputation lay in ruins, theirs grew through demonstrated competence and ethical conduct. That evening, I sat in my study reviewing the day's work. Construction contracts, foundation business, property management, the steady accumulation of legitimate accomplishment. Through the window, Charlotte's skyline gleamed with lights from buildings I'd helped construct over 15 years of honest business. My phone rang. Client call, potential new project. Normal business continuing as it always had, as it always would. I answered with professional confidence, ready to discuss another opportunity to build something lasting and legitimate. Work, always work. The life I'd protected when it was threatened, the reputation I'd maintained when it was attacked, the principles I'd defended when they were tested by family betrayal. Justice served, boundaries maintained, life continuing exactly as it should. 2 years after Tyler's sentencing, I received an unexpected phone call that brought the story full circle. Detective Angela Torres called on a Tuesday morning in March 2027, just as Tyler was being released from federal prison. Mr. Sullivan, I wanted to update you on something. Jeremy Walsh, the man who broke into your house, was arrested again last week in Florida. During his interrogation, he provided additional information about your son's criminal network. I set down my coffee and reached for a notepad. Old habits from Navy intelligence briefings. Always document important information. What kind of additional information? Walsh admitted that Tyler had contacted him about targeting other elderly victims in Charlotte. Your case wasn't isolated. It was a testing ground for a larger operation. Walsh had a list of potential targets, all affluent older adults with family members who had access to their homes and financial information. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Tyler hadn't just betrayed me. He'd been planning to systematically rob other families using the same infiltration techniques. The theft of my property had been a proof of concept for serial family exploitation. How many other families? Walsh had 12 names on his target list. All of them matched the same profile: successful older adults with children or relatives who could provide inside information about security systems, valuable assets, and daily routines. 12 families. Tyler had been planning to destroy 12 families the way he'd tried to destroy mine. If his scheme had succeeded, if I hadn't caught him in the act, he would have moved on to victimizing other parents, other grandparents, other people who'd trusted their families with access to their homes and financial security. Detective Torres, does this affect Tyler's case in any way? Legally, no. He served his time for the crimes against you. But the FBI is interested in this information for their ongoing investigation into organized elder fraud. Your case helped expose a much larger criminal operation. After the call ended, I sat in my study contemplating what I'd learned. Tyler's betrayal hadn't been a desperate son making bad choices. It had been the pilot program for systematic criminal enterprise targeting vulnerable families. My decisive response had prevented him from destroying multiple lives. The validation was profound. Every difficult decision I'd made, cutting Tyler off financially, documenting his crimes, refusing reconciliation, had been justified by outcomes I couldn't have foreseen. I'd protected not just my own assets, but potentially saved other families from similar devastation. That afternoon, I drove to the Sullivan Veterans Foundation office for our quarterly board meeting. The foundation now operated from a small professional building near Charlotte's University District, staffed by 2 full-time employees and serving 25 veteran-owned businesses. Maria Rodriguez attended the meeting as our first scholarship success story. Her cybersecurity firm now employed 8 people and had expanded to serve clients across the Southeast. She'd become our most effective advocate for the foundation's mission, speaking at veteran events about the importance of integrity in business. "Mr. Sullivan," Maria said during her presentation, "we've received applications from 47 veterans for this year's scholarships. The word is spreading that there's an organization that supports people who want to build legitimate businesses the right way." James Parker's construction company had grown to 15 employees and was working on sustainable housing projects in 3 states. Lisa Washington's logistics firm had become the go-to coordination service for veteran-owned businesses throughout the Carolinas. Each success story validated the foundation's mission and Tyler's potential that had been wasted on criminal schemes. The meeting concluded with approval for expanding the scholarship program. We'd support 8 veterans this year, doubling our previous capacity. The foundation's endowment had grown through careful investment and additional donations from Charlotte's business community. Driving home that evening, I reflected on the complete transformation of what had begun as family betrayal. Tyler's crimes had revealed character flaws that would have eventually destroyed him regardless of my response. My choice had been whether to enable his destruction or channel it toward something constructive. The foundation served veterans who embodied everything Tyler could have been: disciplined, honest, committed to building rather than taking. They proved daily that integrity creates lasting success, while criminal shortcuts lead to inevitable collapse. At home, I found a letter waiting from the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce. They were recognizing Sullivan Construction with their annual Business Ethics Award for demonstrating that principled leadership creates stronger communities. The award ceremony would honor companies that maintained high standards even when tested by difficult circumstances. I called Sam Bradley to share the news. 20 years of military service, 15 years building a business, and they're recognizing me for how I handled Tyler's betrayal. There's irony in that. It's not irony, Mac, it's validation. You prove that character matters more than family loyalty when family members choose crime. The business community respects people who defend principles under pressure. That night, I sat on my back deck overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains. The 80 acres Tyler had tried to steal remained safely in the Foundation Trust, generating income that would support veterans for decades after my death. What he'd intended to take and squander would instead create opportunities for people who'd served with honor. My phone buzzed with a text from Maria Rodriguez. "Mr. Sullivan, wanted you to know that another Foundation recipient just landed their first major contract. Your investment in character continues paying dividends." I smiled and put the phone away. Tyler was free now, somewhere in Charlotte starting over with a felony record and ruined reputation. I hoped he'd learned from his consequences, but I'd never know. Our relationship had ended permanently the night he chose theft over honesty. The mountains stood silent and eternal under stars that had witnessed countless human dramas. Justice served, principles maintained, legacy secured through people worthy of trust. Life continuing exactly as it should be, built on foundations that criminal schemes could never shake. Some betrayals destroy families. Others reveal which family members deserve to be trusted with loyalty. Tyler had chosen his path. I'd chosen mine. Both choices would echo through the years ahead, but only one would create something lasting and good. Character wins in the end. It always does.